Woo! How about that? Oh, that's inappropriate. Oh. Oh. Give me a second, why don't you? Yep. They're back. They're making an appearance. The red frames. They look great in this sun, by the way. Absolutely incredible. I mean, how convenient is this? Diet Coke on a quad in the middle of the forest. Let me not straddle that. It feels a little gay. This feels even gayer. I'm just gonna straddle it. I'm out here. I'm gonna just do it. I dropped this when I was riding, trying to hold it, and it fell. It fell first, and I still had the mic in my hand, and I saw like the cord unravel and go out. So I just like jumped off and landed next to this. Everything unscathed. It's a little dirty, but the Zoom PodTrack P4, it's pretty durable, dude. I dropped this hard as fuck. I dropped this going like 35 miles an hour. You know? Don't be scared to come out here and do stuff like this. It's kind of what I wanted to talk about today, is fear. But let me not address the inevitable. I'm on a four-wheeler right now. We had a family four-wheeler for a long time. We had like a Honda Rancher 4x4, 450. And it served us really well for a while. I think we got it in like 08, 09. And what's crazy is, well, let me not skip steps here. There was something messed up with it. Mice got into the engine bay and chewed a bunch of wires, so it would overheat and wouldn't start. So we ended up taking it to a Honda dealer for bikes, mainly bikes, but they take care of stuff like this. And they ended up telling us that there was no value really in getting it redone. It's over like $2,000 to fix something like that, which is almost more than the value of the actual ATV. So use it as some equity, and you can trade it in and finance these things. It's kind of miraculous. I mean, it doesn't sound profound sitting here, but when you hear that news, it's cool. But what's crazy is that the value of these has not changed. So like the price of that same quad back in the day is the exact same price. So I don't know if that's like they're depreciating, I guess, but it's also the technology is just getting easier to make. Or it was more. I looked at it like that would have been like so they're depreciating. So it'd been like right now it's the same price. So back then, if it was matching deflation, I don't know. I can't really wrap my head around it. But I just know they're not as valuable as they used to be. And fun little toy. Anyway, you could be scared on these things too. These things are scary. These things go fucking fast, man. This is automatic, like a pure automatic. An HVT automatic, so you don't have to shift through gears at all. Like it's not manual. It's not manual. Like the other one was an automatic, but it was kind of you have to manually shift through the gears, but it wasn't a manual, like a true manual. So you know what I mean? For all those motocross, supercross guys out there, and I am not one of them. Don't let this Temu helmet fool you. I am not one of those guys. I like to do the stuff, but I'd fucking kill myself riding like a 250, 350, 450 bike, or even 4x4 that would manual. I'd destroy myself. On my way back here, I actually saw what seemed to be a homeless guy, and I was kind of scared for no particular reason. I passed him, just ripped by him, but God bless that guy. He was on a trek. He was walking all the way down there, and I know these power lines lead to a different town, so I know where he's going. I wish him the best on his travels. Me and him back here just ripping it up, man. But today, consciousness, our consciousness, probably one of the most underestimated tools in the human arsenal. Depending on how you look at your religion, this can kind of, be swayed in so many ways. But I feel as if our consciousness is an extremely valuable tool, and we should use it to our advantage in as many case scenarios as we possibly can. We should never fear our decision making. I know a lot of people say they don't trust themselves, or they don't like doing stuff by themselves with no guidance or whatever. They like some teaching But you should trust yourself, even if you're that person. I'd be like, oh, once I start drinking, I can't stop, man. I can't trust myself. Or once I do that, it's all downhill from there. Like you should. It's okay to have those honest opinions of yourself, but you shouldn't fear your own decision making in that way. You should be able to trust your intuition, and that's why you have those gut feelings. That's why we have religion, so you can kind of filter some of those decision makings through like an upholding opinion or like a reliable opinion at that. I keep looking over my shoulder. But you should always rely on yourself to make important decisions, because if you can't make those decisions for yourself, then you're ultimately just going to make decisions based upon everybody else's perspective and morals and things of that nature. And I almost feel as if it's I always say the goal of society. I don't know who's necessarily pulling the puppet strings here, but media, they create this stigma that you should not trust yourself and be scared of your own intuition. And ultimately, if you're scared of your own intuition, then people won't be able to think for themselves. And I think that's super important, that we should be able to think for ourselves. That's how humans have progressed, and that's how we interact amongst each other, and that's how some of this stuff goes down. If it wasn't for people, I just stuttered so bad. If it wasn't for people thinking for themselves and acting upon their own intuition in good and bad ways, then we wouldn't have the interlaced society we do. Settlers going to travel, if they didn't have those mindsets to make those decisions, we would never have, different settlements or different countries or whatever. We wouldn't have, the people that circumnavigated the globe on excuses of a ship or vehicles or planes, like Amelia Earhart. You think that was a really, easy decision to make? No, she probably thought long and hard about that, but ultimately in the end, she knew what she was going to do, and she just did it. She shot her shot. It's a game of life, man. You gotta trust your gut and move on. You gotta trust your intuition, no matter what external, influence you may have. Obviously, think about your decision and plan on outcomes and understand what the outcomes will be. But definitely have faith in yourself. Trust that you made the right decision and trudge onward. And if you fuck up, you fail. Flip it, reverse it, bop it, twist it, and learn from it and get back up and go. Fall down 7, get up 8 type deal. But I'd say like a lot of these decisions can be really hard to make, and it's ultimately, you deciding or thinking about deciding is kind of faltering with that decision-making process by delaying it or making it more difficult than it has to be. In a lot of ways, you can gamify it or kidify it. I saw this meme when I was a kid. It was one of those classic, like, rosy-cheeked, freckled, red hair, like, mid-modern kind of Art Deco poster guys, but he was moving, like, chips on a checkerboard and pieces on a chessboard, and it's as if you would move through life as if you were a kid, or kind of playfully making your decisions that ultimately they become king of the board easier, or you kind of master your process easier. And I think that really helps. I think as an adult we tend to overcomplicate and get a little too intuitive. So I'm kind of flipping on my own point of the intuition. Obviously you should trust it and abide by it, but if you're overthinking it, then there's an issue there, because you don't want to stunt the process or the timing of it. You should gamify it and just shoot your shot as a kid would do in anything. It's kind of the beginner's luck mentality. If you ever notice, like at a board game, if somebody doesn't know the rules and they start ripping through it, they end up being pretty damn successful. It's almost as if like an older person at a casino, whatever, older female, however you would imagine that up, would be like the craps table, not knowing the numbers or the rulings or anything necessarily works out, but they're rolling, they're hitting the dice, they're hitting the they're hitting the cum. Yeah, they're hitting the cum. They're hitting the cum, baby. Or they're just hitting the numbers. They're just rolling, they're motoring, because they're not thinking, they're just going, they're just acting, they're just trusting their instinct, and they're going. I think that's a lot of decision making that we go through, or we do, needs to kind of be kidified or gamified in that way to make it a bit easier on ourselves, because we shouldn't make it that hard, People may think that coming out here and doing this stuff is difficult or it's a difficult decision. It's not. I love doing this. Half of the stuff I've done for 10 plus years. I've done stuff like this for ages, and if you could tell me I can drink a Diet Coke and talk some shit while I'm doing it, sign me up. Yeah, and I know this isn't necessarily everybody's picture-perfect Peaches portrait of being outdoors or doing outdoor stuff, or, you know, I wanted to start, you know, tallying things like non-electrical activities. I know there's a lot more depth. There can be a lot more depth to this, but I want to start gauging non-electrical activities throughout your day, like tallying them up. Stuff that doesn't include electricity. Obviously, our bodies have the electricity voltage of like a LED light bulb or something. Like we have 6 volts of electricity, whatever. But gauging your non-electrical activities throughout the day. And if I know irony, I'm under power lines while I'm doing this. This is like the most electrical activity I could possibly do. I'm so electrified right now. I'm mystified. But, you know, going and just, you know, walking out in nature, walking your dog, reading a book, going to talk to somebody, you know, stuff like that, like disconnecting from the grid. If we can tally up like 3 to 5 of those activities a day, I think people would be in a lot better place mentally. I saw this thing online where this girl exclaimed that human activities are basically just dog activities, or like hanging out with your friends are just dog activities for humans, like axe throwing or kayaking or whatever. And I saw some European guy stitch it and said that, yeah, because Americans are so oversaturated that we assume that we have to spend money on activities in order to have any type of fun. You know what I mean? Like spending $200 in a day to go to a concert or do like something. Like it just has. Do you have to spend money to have fun versus just going to get coffee, smoking a cigarette, and shooting the shit? Like that's I don't know, but I feel like 80% of the people feel that way. Not everybody, you know, wants to spend money and do that. If you have that perception that you have to have fun in order to do that, or there's just no fun things to do. If you're not spending an exuberant amount of money, I feel like you're just incorrect. You haven't done something like this, you know, or just gone to a park and gone on a kayak for a day with the men or the gals, you know, had a picnic, you know. I think that's the issue. You just have to get more non-electrical activities in your life and start surrounding people that want to do those things with you. Like when you go over to your friend's house, let's start collecting phones. Let's bring a bowl around the room. We're not collecting keys. You can drink and drive. You can do that. I'm not condoning that. You guys can do that. But let's collect phones. Let's see the conversations that spark. Let's see how intimidated and quickly everybody starts getting anxiety ridden when their phones get taken from them. Let's go around the room and say, come on, phones, let's go. Boom, pick them up, and then see how live that night is. Let's see. And then when you go out the door, hand them all back out. Or maybe, I don't know if that really induced, then people will be on their phone. I don't know. But let's collect phones when you're hanging with your friends. See what happens. Let's mark it down. Non-electrical activities and collect phones with your friends. Let's fucking do it. You know? I think, you know, that's America. And this is America. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not sure if I can do this in many other countries. I know the UK has kind of gone to shit with the social credit score stuff and scanning people's faces in the streets. I don't know what that's all about. I don't like. Could I do this in another country? Could I do this in Dagestan? Could I do this in Australia? Could I sit on a 4x4 in the middle of the woods under a bunch of power lines and talk about a podcast of philosophy and freedom? Could I do that? Could I do that in another country? Answer me. Australia, Europe, UK, Dagestan, Germany, Russia, Poland, Iceland, Greenland, Africa, South America. Can you guys do this? I want to know. Can you guys do this? I mean, this is, I love that I can do something like this in America, and no matter how insignificant, you know, this podcast may be, I do find very much joy in having the freedom to be able to, you know, speak my piece and do stuff like this. That's America, you know. Even though, you know, a lot of cities are getting like raided and stuff. I don't like that. You know. I think disturbing the peace like that is kind of nuts. But it is what it is. I mean, I really can't wrap my head around it. Specifically, Chicago. I know they're trying to deploy troops out there and stuff. And the mayor has been going bat for bat with El Presidente, saying, no bueno here, compadre. This is not happening. Sorry for my Duolingo English Spanish. But in Chicago, most recently, I feel as if this was almost like a show of force. And those who may not know, a show of force is a reference from the A24 movie Civil War, which is a new modern warfare movie. And they fly these F-15s and F-35 jets like really low to the ground through the cities. They don't drop any artillery, but they just go at supersonic speeds really low to the ground, and they create like a sonic boom. Excuse me. And it's essentially called a show of force because it ruptures the ground it's flying right over. And they had these training sessions in Chicago, right on the lake right outside Chicago. It's geographically stupid of me to not know what lake that is, but I'll pop it up. They were doing like a test flying or a test flight, like some training for those fighter pilots. Fucking fuck, man. And they flew like really close to the water, but they ended up flying way too close to the city limits, like the city shoreline, and they ended up blowing like 3 square blocks of windows out on the first floor and just completely shattered the windows, and like just finally and just breaking the sound barrier just shattered a bunch of windows inward. And I don't know if that was on purpose or by accident, but it's pretty nuts.
Cuts to silence, but the U.S. Air Force Thunderbirds leave you sweeping up broken glass. Casey Cronus is live in Lakeview East with what happened, the reaction, the damage, and who's answering for it. Hey, Casey.
Hey, Terrence, that's right. Thunderbird pilots spent the day showing off their skills in the sky, all while sending shockwaves on the ground where 2 sonic booms rocked the neighborhood. Soaring past the city's skyline, the U.S. Air Force Thunderbirds are putting high speeds and glass-shattering force on full display.
Out of just nowhere, just boom, just like, I'm still tweaking from it. Like that was absolutely scary.
Residents are still stunned after a couple passes during rehearsal, one at 10:20 a.m. and another around 2:40 p.m. rattled more than just nerves.
We just came back, and my husband, my son were there. They say even the tables were shaking, and it was so loud that the feeling was that the building is moving.
What neighbors describe as a sonic boom blew out the windows in at least 3 building lobbies, 3950, 3600, and 3180 North Lakeshore Drive, where the windows are boarded up until replacement glass arrives.
The experience of this was something I've never felt before.
Alec Harris and Matt Lauer were on the phone when the first blast happened.
I'm like, Alec, did you just hear that? And he goes, what was that? I'm like, I got scared. I thought my window was going to break because all it was just like a brrr.
They had a front row seat for the second.
I'm like genuinely like still shaken up by it. Like that was violently scary.
It's about exceeding the speed of sound.
Meet Patricia Ward, head scientist at the Griffin Museum of Science and Industry.
And the speed of sound at sea level anyway is about 767, a little under 770 miles per hour.
She is breaking down what it means to break the sound barrier.
There's air pressure in front of the moving aircraft and air pressure behind it. And when it exceeds that speed of sound, it's going so fast that those 2 bodies of air, if you will, or areas of air will collide. And so that happens really quickly. And then you get this very loud, explosive sound.
In this case, when several F-16 Fighting Falcons do that in unison, they nail a smashing performance.
When a sheet of glass is really large, it can be more brittle. And so even a small crack, if you will, and it's that vibration. And when that vibration creates some damage, it then can shatter.
And
apologies for including the full 2-minute video coverage of what occurred during that incident in Chicago. However, the initial video I was going to include was not that one. And upon discovery of this one, I found that the editing of this specific news channel was quite intriguing, and also the abundance of knowledge and opinions they shared. I've found a lot of goofiness
in some of these guys' reviews of what occurred that day. Also, I just cannot get over the news channel editing and the overlays and the opacities of the jets and the wood they used to board up the windows. But please enjoy.
It's pretty nuts. I was listening to Matt and Shane's secret podcast, and they were satirizing, disrupting Antifa raids and different parades and stuff like that by doing shows of force. And I couldn't have thought that, the CIA saw that and just said, hey, sounds like a good idea. If you're thinking the CIA isn't listening to that specific podcast, then you'd be proven wrong. So they probably took it with a grain of salt and said, hey, that's not a bad idea to do that. And they also had like those Chicago's an interesting city. They had like those stress relief groups where people would go onto the edge of the water and just scream as loud as they can to relieve all the stress they had. And I couldn't help but imagine like the show of force occurring during that, like 30 people just standing on the lakeside screaming and just jets ripping by and blowing them off their feet. Pretty cool stuff. Electronic Arts has been sold. A new $55 billion deal will take place. EA will now privatize their stocks and shares, and they will no longer be traded on stock exchange. One of the biggest gaming companies in the world agreed to this deal. The consortium of buyers includes Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, PIF, and Silver Lake, and many others. And if you didn't know that, the Saudi Arabian dude that you've been seeing on UFC and all that, this is the guy that's trying to lobby for Saudi Arabia to essentially like modernize its culture, which I think is kind of radical. Like, they just did not radical in the bad sense, but they just did the Riyadh Comedy Festival out there, and it was pretty controversial. A bunch of comedians went out and people were critiquing their decision making once again, and I thought it was pretty cool because I was at Chris DiStefano's comedy show in New York, and he talked about it pretty in depth, and he had a really interesting perspective about how they're just recently getting like modernized, like in 2019 or 2020, to American civilized culture, necessarily like their own kind of democratized version of that, and just having like social media and kind of like that freedom of speech kind of ordeal, that we get in America, that cool stuff that we get to do day in and day out. Yeah, like they just got it recently. So people have like this really newfound perspective on it. And I think this guy's, kind of on the ball. He's all in UFC. He's getting comedy out there. He just bought EA, which I made a YouTube video about how much EA's been blowing the past few weeks and few months and maybe even a few years. Like they just shoved our face with like 6 or 7 games right before this merger was about to happen, just so they can make their money on these last few games, like Madden, college football, Battlefield, Skate, like all these stupid fucking games that they just completely undermined and undersold, or oversold and undermined, have just been terrible. So I couldn't be more excited for Saudi to get their hands on EA to see what they can do with this company. Maybe they just make it super masculine and just make like a bunch of hitmen and assassin games, but I think that's pretty cool. I think that's pretty damn cool. But yeah, EA is just completely butchered the past few games they have made. That's why I've almost gone to completely retro games, GameCube games. I started streaming Wii and retro GameCube, Super Mario. So tune in for those. Those are going to be exciting. Those are going to be really fun, But yeah, EA Skate sucks. I don't even have to go any deeper than what I have. But video games have been pretty interesting. I know Helldivers is a game that everybody's been playing recently, and I have like a big tech kind of false flag conspiracy on it, because it's just like this modern warfare game, kind of like combined with Halo. I wouldn't call it intergalactic because I think they're all in the same solar system still, but it's just kind of like battle royale tiered leveled games where you kind of conquer worlds and you have to save get your universe from foreign invasion species of aliens, and they're co-opted, and they're waved. Like you have to kill waves of enemies. It's a pretty good game, but it's very modernized, and it's a lot of democracy. For some reason, they preach democracy in it amongst the people and the soldiers, as if there's a freedom of choice to fight for the intergalactic warfare that they are presenting.
Look familiar? Scenes like these are happening all over the planet right now. You could be next. That is, unless you make the most important decision of your life. Prove to yourself that you have the strength and the courage to be free. Join the Marines.
The Helldivers.
And my brother's super into it. Our generation, his generation is super into it. It's a pretty good game. But I've conspiracy that I think big tech, CEOs, that they take the influence and make these games off of kind of writhe, or I don't know if that's the right word. They kind of they love. Let's just say that they love the fact that this is like a modernistic, approach to people's daily lives. It's like such a part of people's, it's so ingrained in them. That people have such an innate understanding of all the intricacies of these games, with the vocabulary that they use, or the weapons and the loadouts and the ammunition and the armor, everything. Just people are complete. We're getting sped for it in a good way because they're very knowledgeable about it. But I feel as if these big tech CEOs are so excited because when the world eventually does get to that point, which I don't think it will, but if it does and if it will, I think that's their pinnacle, because they have this whole generation of soldiers who have been subconsciously training playing video games. Because if anybody plays that video game as religiously as my brother, which I know a lot of people do, because you can see on the servers, this stuff's ingrained in them. It's like a ticking clock. They just know when they're deployed and they're out there, and it's just automatic. It's in them. It's flowing through their veins. So you talk about a guy like Peter Thiel, CEO of Palantir, who basically develops, these types of modern warfare weapons, and you got kids virtually training with them. That's perfect. That's right down his alley. He just hopes to deploy all these guys one day. Even though people have the freedom of choice, he's going to have some sort of Winter Soldier script, or some Soviet Union handbook where he's just going to read a few blurbs or a few paraphrases of whatever, of some old ancient script, and it's just going to completely turn everybody's conscious off, and then become these AI soldiers, these human AI soldiers that are using their subconscious memory to fight intergalactic warfare amongst the universes that they discovered through another billion-dollar tech companies. So if you couldn't tell, that was a little bit of a far-fetched idea and haven't really contextualized or tossed it around too much, then you thought wrong, because I thought about it a lot. I think about it every single day. No, but I just think video games are like sim training for that stuff. I still play them. But the new generation loves it. And I talked about this with my brother and some of his friends, and he's 3 or 4 years younger than me. They love it. They'd be down for it. So, it's just, I guess it's where we're heading. It's just state of the world, man. Kids are trained up, and we're ready to go for intergalactic warfare. I'd just Master Chief it. I would just bounce around and avoid everything. I'd go to different universes and have... Never mind. Yeah, but Peter Thiel wants Helldivers 3 to be the younger generation's reality. Dr. Jane Goodall passed away recently. She was a nature enthusiast. She was a primate expert, nature expert, world-renowned. And she had a very interesting perspective on life and modern politics and geopolitics. And she had this interview, which was pretty touching, which I'll insert. But a big message that I got from it was that she was really emphasizing hope in humanity and hope in society, and that if society has hope, and then ultimately we will prevail, and the good in humanity will show eventually, and all that type of good stuff. Which
about who you were. So who would you say you were?
I would say I was somebody sent to this world to try to give people hope in dark times, because without hope, we fall into apathy and do nothing. And in the dark times that we are living in now, if people don't have hope, we're doomed. And how can we bring little children into this dark world we've created and let them be surrounded by people who've given up? So even if this is the end of humanity as we know it, let's fight to the very end. Let's let the children know, that there is hope if they get together. And even if it becomes impossible for anybody, it's better to go on fighting to the end than just to give up and say, okay.
I really like, but I think there's a study, there's this experiment on mice and hope, and I think it frames this idea really well. It was a double-blind placebo where they got a single mouse and they put it in like a large tub of water and let it tread for as long as it possibly could. I think it was only about 2 minutes before they saved it. But they saved it, so it didn't end up drowning. And then they put that same mouse into that same tub of water and let it tread. And then in that second time it was treading, it tread way past the 2 minute mark because they assumed that it had this idea it was going to get saved. So it tread for like 30, 45 minutes before it ended up kind of dribbling out, and they saved it, obviously. Who knows? Maybe they killed the mice. But it's the idea that how much longer we last when we have hope on our minds. Like a hopeless human tends to be aimless and doesn't necessarily have, the motivation or dedication to pursue something of value or something that they find really valuable to themselves because of the lack thereof understanding that they might even work out. You know what I mean? So hope is this indicator that I think everybody should have. And it's hard to contextualize. You can't really see or feel. You could feel hope. You could spread hope, but it's hard to kind of value hope, especially in times of need. It's really hard to understand what and where to find it. So that feeling of hope and understanding that there is better times ahead, or even using, like I talked about, faith and understanding and filtering kind of some of those decisions or those thoughts through faith and knowing that hope is ultimately the way out. Or not even necessarily the way out, but the way to trudge on forward is super important. Because obviously with this experiment as an example, something with lackluster hope or lack thereof won't necessarily last very long in the race or the battle. So I think it's important for a lot of us to still have hope in ourselves, and no matter how bad things may look, to continue to hope that things will get better, to have a multifaceted, multivariable goal that you can work towards. That way you're not completely pigeonholed, or you're not siphoning yourself off to something too direct or too obscure. You should always have hope and things will work out. Because you're always gonna end up running into what you avoided at the end of the day. I don't think there's really anything you can do to avoid the inevitable. I know this is very broad stroke, but I think that's important to understand that those decisions, those hard decisions you're making, or the hope you're trying to find, it's there. The answer is there. It's just a matter of kind of trudging and pushing forward and just realizing that, it's not that significant at the end of the day, and that you just need to trust it and ride it. And if you're making a decision to avoid something, that it's still going to come and get you, man. It's always going to find a way to come and find a way to you. Like it's like, whether you believe it or not, like the ice wall that everybody talks about on flat Earth or whatever. Like, you think you could run to the ends of the earth to escape or hide your wrongdoings, but it's just, and I'm just smacking you in the face. It's going to end up smacking you in the face, man. I've been stuttering so bad today. I'm so sorry. But all those decisions are going to come back, and you're going to see them. You're going to see that stuff again. you're going to run into that big wall, and you're going to be like, fuck, why did I just do that now? Why didn't I just do that earlier? You know what I mean? You know, sometimes a yes is a hard yes. Sometimes a no is a hard no. It doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, or you shouldn't say yes or no. You shouldn't give time to something that is skeeving you out that much, or giving you that much hormonal activity. You know, it is what it is, man. Take it with a grain of salt. Because at the end of the day, everything is nothing, and nothing is everything. Look, man, I'm not no fucking expert, dude. Like, I know I only know so much. Like, I can't expect anybody to sit here and deem me an expert in anything. I've only seen what I've seen. I only know what I know. I only aim to, you know, provide some insight and perspective on some things, and hope to let people know they're not that alone out there in some of their thoughts or their actions or their doubt. You know, just take everything with a grain of salt and just, you know, push forward, man. Trust your intuition, trust your gut. You don't have to be taking everything factually and statistically, otherwise you'd be a computer and you're not using the innate gift of human nature that we have been destined with by our creator. Use that thing, man. That's why we're given it. We're not plug and play binary systems where you just go 1-0, 1-0, 1-0. We're supposed to have emotions. You're allowed to be angry, upset, happy, sad, fucked, unfucked. You know? All those things are allowed to be. So, let it be. Love you. Take care.
All right, bye now. Have a good time.